Now at 5, a ceremony marks the transition of the Pittsburgh Hospital to new ownership. Plus, the latest on efforts to rebuild a historic church heavily damaged by fire. And
reactions continue to pour in following Tuesday's presidential debate. I'm Skyler Henry in Washington with a recap and what voters have to say.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
The transfer of ownership for the hospital in Pittsburgh culminates today with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. This is KOAM News at 5. I'm Dow Quick. The ceremony recognizes Mercy's acquisition of the former Via Christi Hospital in Pittsburgh. The transaction was officially finalized on September 1st. Mercy Hospital Pittsburgh is the third Mercy Hospital in Kansas, joining Mercy Hospital Columbus and Mercy Specialty Hospital Southeast Kansas in Galena. Mercy says their investment in specialty care will benefit the Pittsburgh community and patients.
There was a need, and they were looking for a long-term sustainable partner to come into this community. Number one. Number two, it's an incredible community. There's a great physician backdrop here. There's a great history of service in the community. And it's also a natural progression for Mercy. It's not an island sitting way out in the middle of nowhere. It's part of, and it's a contiguous part of where we currently provide care.
Mercy also operates 2 primary care clinics in Pittsburgh. 2 years after a lightning strike caused fire at a Fort Scott church, efforts to rebuild are well underway. The fire at Mary Queen of Angels Catholic Church caused an estimated $6 million in damage, and the building was deemed a total loss. The church staff began holding Mass in a gymnasium the next day as rebuild efforts started. Construction of the new church is ongoing, with the dedication Mass scheduled for November. Parish members say it was important for the historic church to come back despite the tragedy.
Words can't just explain how exciting it is, how overwhelming, how terrific to know that this church that burned down and out of those ashes will be resurrected.
There'll be a benefit dinner to support the rebuild efforts this Friday at 5 p.m. at the Kennedy Gym in Fort Scott. We're going to have more on the church's rebuild efforts tonight on KOAM News at 6. For now, let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Doug Hetty for a first look at the weather.
Well, it turned out to be another nice one for us today. Temperatures pretty good across the region. A little bit hotter as most of us right around 90, 91 degrees. 89 in Joplin, 89 in Pittsburgh. Clouds have been increasing, but still temperatures pretty good. Most of us have been sitting upper 80s to lower 90s. As we go through the evening hours, we are going to have a lot of clouds. We'll drop through the 80s, 70s into the 60s as we go through the evening hours. But you can see those mid and upper level clouds which have been streaming in over the past several hours, and this is all due to Francine, which is down to our south. Just made landfall a couple hours ago as a Category 2 hurricane. But we are mainly going to be seeing the clouds from Francine as we go through the next couple days. So we're going to break down your forecast for you here in just a bit.
See you soon. On this September 11th, the Ford Wolf Bronze Chapel in Coffeyville held a Patriot Day event honoring local first responders for their hard work and dedication to the community. Each responder received a meal and a t-shirt that reads "Never Forget." One organizer says it's dear to her heart because she has relatives who are first responders, and just like many others, she worries for their safety when they're on duty.
Today we are honoring all of our police, EMS, fire, and veterans, as well as nurses, doctors, everyone that would be involved in an emergency event.
This is the 17th year the chapel has hosted this event. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump both took time off the campaign trail to commemorate the September 11th attacks 23 years ago today. The brief pause in the political rhetoric follows their first meeting last night for a heated presidential debate. Skyler Henry has details.
The planes for Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump were stacked up at LaGuardia Airport as both candidates attended 9/11 memorial services, and the rivals shook hands at the Ground Zero ceremony Wednesday morning.
Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Hours earlier, Harris met Trump with a handshake as the two faced off in their first and likely only presidential debate. For Harris, that meant going on the offensive.
Apparently we're having some difficulty with that report. We can tell you both candidates are back on the campaign trail tomorrow, with Vice President Harris holding several rallies in North Carolina, while former President Trump will talk about immigration again in the border state of Arizona. Still ahead, the lingering effects of a terror attack.
23 years after the 9/11 attacks, the medical journey continues for survivors and first responders. I'm Bradley Blackburn with how many are still being diagnosed and getting help from the World Trade Center Health Program.
Plus, the CDC has a new recommendation concerning IUD pain. Those stories next in Health Watch. Topping today's Health Watch, the 9/11 terror attacks are still taking a toll on the physical and mental health of survivors and first responders. As we mark 23 years since the attacks, Bradley Blackburn shows us how people are still being diagnosed with 9/11 health conditions and getting treatment through a program that promises care for life.
On September 11, 2001, NYPD Detective Robert Jordan went into the cloud of white debris after the Twin Towers fell.
And when we got down there, it was like night. Everything was dark and gloomy, and it was all from the dust and debris.
He served at Ground Zero after the attacks and was even part of President Bush's security detail during his historic speech in the pit. In 2017, after Jordan had retired, the father of two was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer.
It hits you all like a ton of bricks, your family, your medical well-being, everything, and I didn't know what to do.
He found out about the World Trade Center Health Program at Northwell Health, and after chemotherapy, surgery, and more than 40 radiation treatments, he's now in remission. Care is authorized through the program until 2090. Dr. Jacqueline Moline says many survivors and first responders are just now seeing longer-term health effects from their exposure to toxic dust and debris.
There were so many different cancer-causing substances in the dust and the plume. And the fires burned for 3 months. So there was continued exposure.
Thousands of new patients enroll in the World Trade Center Health Program every year, and cancer is a frequent diagnosis.
When I got sick, I figured I'd be one of the last ones, and I was basically one of the first.
It's why Jordan is determined to tell anyone who was exposed about the care that's available.
Just something everybody needs to know that was down there and sacrificed.
Still helping people in a different way 23 years later. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
More than 40,000 people have been diagnosed with 9/11 related cancer. The World Trade Center Health Program is open to anyone who was a responder or survivor at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, or Shanksville, Pennsylvania. For the first time, the CDC is recommending doctors talk to women about pain management for intrauterine devices, or IUDs. For years, women have described painful experiences during the insertion and removal of the birth control device. The CDC now recommends doctors tell their patients that the local anesthetic lidocaine could be useful in reducing patient pain. On CBS Mornings, Dr. Celine Gounder also talked about a new device that could help make the procedure more bearable.
This is the old device, what's called a tenaculum. So it has these little hooks, sharp hooks on the end. This was used during the Civil War to remove bullets and to pull tissue during an amputation. The new device is already in use at Columbia University, Indiana University, and then a series of clinics, women's health clinics called TIA, are partnering with the company that makes this to train their providers.
IUDs are the most effective contraceptives available for women and are more than 99% effective at preventing pregnancy. And that is a look at today's health news. A little bit later, our pet vet on call.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eva Dudek from Parsons Pet Hospital. Coming up, we're going to talk about poison ivy on your pets.
Well, we definitely have the clouds moving in, so does that mean we're going to get any rain? We're going to look at that coming up. Well, it turned out to be a little bit hotter for us today. Temperatures right around 90, 91 degrees, and the clouds have been increasing throughout the afternoon. But overall, it's been a pretty decent day. Here's a great shot of our Indigo Sky Casino and Resort. Indigo is just outside of Seneca, Missouri, and it looks pretty good, even though we are seeing those clouds increasing. All right, upper 80s yesterday. Today, we went into lower 90s, so a little bit hotter. But again, we don't have much in the way of humidity, so we don't have to worry about that mugginess, that soupiness, a lot of times that we see during the summer months. But let's go into tomorrow morning. Clouds all the way across the region, mid and upper level clouds. We'll start into the mid 60s. Temperature is still pretty good for us tomorrow by noon. Let's say about 80 to about 82, and then during the afternoon about 87 or so. The clouds are going to be much thicker on the Missouri and the Arkansas side, and we'll have a mixture of sun once you get out across southeastern Kansas and also into northeastern parts of Oklahoma, and then we drop back upper 60s as we get into Thursday evening. All right, 67 in the morning, 83 by noon, 87 by 4. And tonight and tomorrow, we can't rule out a couple sprinkles, but if you want rain, and this is all due to the remnants of Francine, then you're just not really going to get it from this storm system. All right, outside right now, it's 84 in Monette, 89 in Grove, Pittsburgh 89, 91 in Independence. Still a little bit hazy out there, some smoke from Arkansas, about 20,000 feet or so, 87. East-southeasterly winds 5 to 10. Through the evening, slide back through the 80s into the 70s. Again, clouds increase, but it looks pretty good. So this is kind of interesting. You can see the cumulus clouds lifting northwest, and then you can see the mid and upper level clouds streaming in and thickening up across the region. That's what we're going to have as we go through the evening. Rain down through parts of Arkansas, and look at the eye wall of Hurricane Francine, still a hurricane, but it's onshore now, so it will start to weaken. Those heaviest bands right on the west side near New Orleans. Clocking winds at 100 miles per hour, so a Cat 2 lifts up into Mississippi, right across Jackson, and then up toward Memphis by the time we head into tomorrow evening, and then slows down and then weakens as it gets into northeastern Arkansas. Look at the clouds, but not much in the way of rainfalls pushing that far toward the west. So if we start with tomorrow evening, you can see the showers to our east. We may get a random shower in here again tomorrow night, but most of us will stay dry. We'll start with clouds on Friday and then break out and see sunshine as we get into the afternoon. By Friday evening, still partly cloudy skies. Temperatures upper 70s to near 80. And then as we get into Saturday, I think we'll have quite a bit of sunshine. We'll start near 60. All right, let's look at Friday night high school football. It's going to be holding on to more great weather. 78 by kickoff, partly cloudy. 69 by the fourth quarter. But all in all, looking pretty good for some high school football weather on Friday evening. 87 on Thursday, 84 Friday, 88 Saturday, isolated thunderstorm, but better chances for rain increasing as we go through next week.
It looks like a nice weekend for the most part.
Yeah, overall it looks pretty good.
Thanks, Doug. The latest inflation numbers are out. We're going to take a look coming up next. Topping today's Consumer Watch, some encouraging news. A new report shows inflation is easing. CBS News senior business and tech correspondent Jolene Kent takes a look at where prices are improving.
Food costs are getting a little easier to swallow. Government data shows grocery store prices rose less than 1% over the last year, way down from the 13% increase 2 years ago. And filling up is getting cheaper. Prices at the pump are down 58 cents a gallon in the past year.
Oil now at its lowest level since 2021. And that's keeping gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel prices far lower than they've been in recent memory.
Overall, annual inflation rose 2.5%. That's the smallest year-over-year increase since 2021. But while many everyday costs are easing, housing continues to drive inflation. Rent prices are up 5.2% in the last 12 months. The Federal Reserve is analyzing the data closely. It meets next week on interest rates. The Fed pushed rates to a 23-year high to bring down inflation, which also slowed the economy and the job market.
The Fed understands it's time to start cutting interest rates.
CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger says Wall Street hopes to see a larger half-point cut, but that likely won't happen.
Of course, there is a possibility for a 0.5 percentage point drop, but I think for the first rate cut in 4.5 years, they'll start with 0.25 percentage point.
The Fed could continue to cut rates later in the year. The board meets again in November and December. Jolene Kent, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The CME Group's FedWatch tool predicts there's an 85% chance the Fed will cut rates by a quarter point next week. Bank of America says thousands of its workers are getting another pay bump. The California-based bank will raise its minimum pay to $24 an hour starting next month. The company has vowed to raise its base wage to $25 per hour by next year. One of the country's most iconic brands plans to change its name. Campbell's Soup wants to drop soup from its corporate moniker. The company has been around for 155 years, but leaders say there's more to Campbell's these days than just soup, and soup is now a smaller part of the company's sales. So it wants to be known as the Campbell's Company, not the Campbell's Soup Company. Shareholders will have the final say on whether the name change becomes official. Federal regulators say Keurig Dr. Pepper has agreed to pay a $1.5 million civil penalty over charges that it made inaccurate claims about the recyclability of its K-Cup pods. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission says the company failed to disclose significant concerns expressed by two of the largest U.S. recycling companies, both of which did not accept the K-Cups for recycling. In agreeing to the settlement, Keurig does not admit guilt or deny the findings in the ruling. And Brock's has created Sweet Sweets for candy corn lovers. Now fans of the Halloween candy can reserve a stay in specially decorated rooms at Great Wolf Lodge locations in Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains and Gurnee, Illinois, for travel dates between the first day of fall, September 22nd, and Halloween, October 31st. Each suite comes with a pantry stocked with candy corn, of course, along with other snacks. Our Pet Vet on Call is up next. Up next on the CBS Evening News, an exclusive interview with the pilot of that Alaska Airlines flight that had a door blow off in midair. Then on KOAM News at 6, Joplin police investigate a stabbing outside the Salvation Army building. Plus, more on the efforts to rebuild a historic church that was damaged by a lightning fire. And we're going to have a look at the Player of the Week honors, national honors for local athletes. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. As we enjoy milder weather, you might spend more time on adventure hikes with your pets. Well, that brings us to today's question for our Pet Vet on Call. Does poison ivy affect cats and dogs?
Not very commonly, because poison ivy is an irritant to skin, and pets, cats and dogs, have fur, so it does not get through the fur to their skin. Now, however, if they got into a really thick patch, some dogs have bare tummies, maybe get around their eyelids and their mouth or inside their ears, and they could get a rash, kind of like we do, but it's not very common. It's more common that they give it to their people off of their fur.
You know, we invite questions from anyone, anytime. If you have a question, all you have to do is send it to petvet@koamtv.com. Dr. Eva Dudek from the Parsons Pet Hospital answers a different question or sometimes brings us a fun fact every Wednesday on KOAM News at 5. You can also find answers to previous questions on our website. Let's check out our picks of the litter for the week. From the Joplin Humane Society, we have an adult male Labrador Retriever. His name is Kaiser. They say he's energetic, always ready for an adventure or a fun game of fetch, although he is kind of shy. They say he is friendly. And from the Southeast Kansas Humane Society, we've chosen this adult male cat named Raph. They say he loves people, loves playing with toys, and he loves sleeping in the laundry basket because he is a cat, and what cat doesn't? If you're looking for a pet, why not at least check out your local Humane Society? They have lots of great ones there, and you'll probably find one that's just right for you. Weather looking pretty nice, Doug.
Yeah, it looks pretty good as we go through the evening hours. Clouds continue to thicken up. We could see a random sprinkle tonight, tomorrow, or tomorrow night. Most of you will stay dry. 87 on Thursday, 84 on Friday. A little warmer as we head into the weekend. Slight chance for a pop-up storm.
Overall, a nice weekend to get outside again. Thanks for joining us. The CBS Evening News is next. And of course, we're going to be right back here for KOAM News at 6. We'll see you then. Let's make it a great evening.